Hello everybody. In my previous video of connecting three routers together, three Wi-Fi routers together, I've showed you how to get three routers talking to each other to a central hub. This is the central hub in that three Wi-Fi router connector. So basically what we had there was a star topology with this router being the central router. What I'm going to do in this video is change that up, and not, this is going to be the primary router, the main router, but it's not going to be the central router. What we're going to do is take three routers and connect them together in a linear fashion and cascade from one to the next to the next. So we're going to have three routers, and we're going to go from one router to the next router to the main router. Okay, so I'm going to use three routers to extend Wi-Fi range considerably and show you how to get a little more coverage from this configuration than you would have from a star topology. So this is going to be a daisy chain linear network with three routers, basically the third one connecting to the second one connecting to the third one, and then that third one connecting all three of them to the internet. So I'll show you this a little more clearly in the next slide. I'm going to be using two WDS routers and one non-WDS router. The non-WDS router will be the WNR 2000 version 3 from Netgear. It does not have WDS as far as I know, and it doesn't require it. That's going to be the main. This is going to be the main one, main router. The second one's going to be TP-Link WR940N router, and it does have WDS. And the third is going to be a WR741N from TP-Link as well. Both these routers require WDS. These are available from Amazon for under $30 currently. I'll put a link for them in the video description below for you guys, so you can get these where I got them. Highly reliable routers, very cool, work really well, and both have the required WDS technology that will make this work. Okay, so in the next slide, I'm going to show you how this is all going to be arranged and what the whole purpose is of connecting these in a daisy chain fashion or linear fashion as opposed to a star topology. Okay, so let's do that next. This is the original configuration I had on my first video showing you how to connect two routers to a central office internet connected router. These two, the blue and the yellow range of routers, or the secondary and the third router, are WDS capable routers. They have WDS technology. WDS is wireless distribution system. The central one does not, but it doesn't need it. So your main router does not have to have WDS technology for this to work, but your secondary and your third router certainly do. In this case, you'll see that I'm assuming you have an office in the center of your house, and so this router creates a Wi-Fi circle or range from the center of your house that reaches the garage and reaches the living room. So the garage router connects to the central hub or router, and the living room router connects to the central office router. So this is great if you have a home where the router is in the center of it and both other routers can reach it. But if they cannot, you're going to have a problem. And this is what I'm showing you here in the next slide. Let's assume you have a router in the northwest corner of your house instead of the center of your house. Yes, it'll create a Wi-Fi circle or range that can be reached by, let's say, a third of your house. And and in the center of the house, you can have another one, a living room router, without any issue, because the two Wi-Fi signals cross, and then these two routers can talk to each other without any issue at all. And that's using WDS again. But what happens with the garage? It's too far away from the office Wi-Fi signal to connect to it, so it can't do that. So what I'm going to show you here in this video is how to connect the garage to the living room signal or router, which is connected to the office. So what we're going to be doing is sharing the internet and everything that's connected to the main router to the secondary router, and they will share the internet to anything that's Wi-Fi or connects to the back of that router without any issue. And then the third router will connect to this router and share out the internet and be able to connect, hard connect computers or printers to it, no problem at all basically going through a linear connection. So we're going to go from office to the living room to the garage, and that allows us to have full coverage without any issue at all. And these two routers will be talking to each other using WDS. This router will be talking to the main router using WDS, but the main router, again, does not need it. And again, if you don't have a WDS router or don't know whether you have one or not, check your documentation for your router, or check your website for the manufacturer of your router and see if it is available on your router. This should be able to be done with any two routers that have WDS and the main router that's got Wi-Fi and connected to the internet, just like this. So these two routers don't need to be used to do this. Two routers with WDS would be optimal. If you want to, these two routers are under $30 on Amazon, so if you want to buy these, look in the video description below, and you can go buy them. I think right now the only real current one that's available is the WR940N, but you could use two of those, no problem at all as well. Okay, so let's get on to configuring this. First thing we're going to do is configure the main router, and we're going to do that right away. So let's minimize this out of the way. So I'm assuming right now that you're connected either through Wi-Fi or through a LAN cable to your main router. Let me set that up too. I got my Wi-Fi off here. So I'm going to connect to the main router here. I'm assuming you are already. If you're not, just do so. And if you're not connected to your main router through Wi-Fi, you may be connected through a LAN connection. I'll simulate that as well, so you can see what both of them look like. But I'm assuming that somehow your computer is connected to the internet, and that usually means it's connected to a router. So let's go to the Start button, go to the Gear button, which is your Settings button. Then we're going to go to the Network and Internet, and then we're going to scroll down to Network and Sharing Center, and then we're going to go to Change Adapter Settings. Okay, here's basically, this shows you all your network connections, and you can see here I've got a Wi-Fi connection that's active and a primary Ethernet connection that is active as well. So I'm connected to the same router using a LAN cable and Wi-Fi. So let me turn off the Wi-Fi so you can see what that looks like. So if you're not connected through Wi-Fi, there'll be a red X through it like this, and your Ethernet will be connected, which is your LAN cable. And if your LAN cable is not connected, you'll have a red X on that too. So now you're disconnected on both. So, it says network cable unplugged. So I don't know why I don't have a red X there. It should have a red X. Okay, let's see if there we go. It says network. Okay, I'll disable it, see if that does it. Nope, enable. Basically at this point, everything's disconnected. So you're either going to have a red X on your Wi-Fi or a red X on your Ethernet, or say network cable unplugged. I'm going to plug it in, and it'll identify the network, or you'll see this over here on if your Wi-Fi is on. Okay, reason I'm showing you this, because you could have either one of these connections. You could have a Wi-Fi connection, or you could have an Ethernet connection. So all you need to do to find out the IP address of your main router is to right-click either connection and then go to Status. And then from there, go to Details. And there you'll see the IPv4 default gateway. That's 192.168.1.1. So let's take out Notepad, and we want to write all this information down. So main router, my main router, and that's what it's called on Wi-Fi. So I'm going to type in main router, and then I'm going to put IP address, and trust me, you want to take this information down. So it's 192.168.1.1. That's right there, and that is the IPv4 default gateway. So 192 192.168.1.1. And you'll see that the DHCP server and DNS server have the same IP address. That's because both of those functions are taken care of by the same device, your main router. So don't worry about it. This is all you need to know, the IPv4 default gateway. So let's close this off and this off. You've written it down. You know that that's the main router's IP address. Now, if you're connected through an Ethernet cable, you can right-click that connection, go to status, and then back to details and get the exact same information, okay? So 192.168.1.1, right? So either way, that's how you get that information, and we will be using that information again. So I'm just going to minimize this down, okay? So now we got the IP address of the primary router. Now, why do we want that? Because we have to configure the primary router to do this. So let's go do that, and we're going to go here, open up a browser window. All right, and we're going to go to the main router, which is 192.168.1.1. You could copy and paste it if you wish, but just type it in the address bar. Now, I got a Netgear router as the main router, and I'm using the default passwords. You shouldn't have default passwords set up for your routers, but I'm showing you that as an example just in case you do, so that at least you can get into it using the default passwords and then change it. But you should always change the default username and password for your router from the default that comes from the manufacturer, because that's a security issue. That means anybody can get into your router, because it's really easy to Google Netgear router default passwords, and it'll give you this stuff. So, and I'm about to tell you too. So to get in with a Netgear, the default username and password is admin and password, all in lowercase. Okay, so let's sign in. Again, change these. Don't leave them this way. Don't be crazy. It's a basic security setting, and if you don't know how to do that on your router, again, Google's your friend. Go on Google, search for your router, changing the username and password, and you'll find it. Okay, let's go to here. What we're going to do is set up the networking so that we can hook up two routers without having them conflict with each other or the main router. Okay, so on the Netgear Genie webpage, we're going to go to the Advanced tab, and then we're going to go to Setup and LAN Setup, which is Local Area Network. That's what LAN stands for. Okay, and here you can see the DHCP and IP address setting page, and by default, these are the numbers you're going to find here. Okay, you're going to find the IP address of the router, which is 192.168.1.1. So we're not going to play with that. Leave that alone. Then you're going to find something called DHCP server. Now, all routers have this stuff in different places. So wherever your router has the DHCP settings, go there. That's what you need. All right. So by default, this router is got a range of IP addresses it doles out to the network, and every device on your network needs a specific and unique IP address, and that's what the DHCP server does. It doles out those numbers to every device that connects to your network. The problem with that is that if it doles out the same IP address as your secondary or your third router or tertiary router, you're going to have a problem. It's going to knock those devices off the network, and they will no longer work. It won't damage them, but they just won't work anymore, and you won't be able to surf the net with those two routers. So what we're going to do is set up a range of IP addresses that allows you to put those two devices. Actually, it'll allow you to put up to 9 new devices onto your network with what they call a hard-coded IP address without any conflict at all. So again, don't get too techy about it. Just go to your DHCP settings, change the setting from 192.168.1.2 in this case to 10. If you want a bigger range, you could go to 20, 30, 40. It's up to you. But 10 will give you 9 free IP addresses. So here we're going to hit apply. And again, don't worry about the technical reasons. Just set the settings correctly and move on, right? It'll work, trust me. Okay, once this is done, we're going to go to, we want to go to the wireless setup. And we'll come back and make sure that that setting took. All right, here we are in the wireless settings. This is what you're going to find by default on this. We've got to come here to set a few things up. What we're going to do is change the channel here because it's set on auto. You don't want the channel set on auto because it will switch around and it'll mess up the other routers. So we're going to choose one of three different channels to go on. The best three channels on the spectrum are 1, 6, and 11. And trust me on this, they are the best. So choose one of those three, 1, 6, or 11, and whichever one you find works best for you, you can experiment. I'm going to choose the one in the center, 6, and I'm going to hit apply. All right, now while it's doing this, I'm going to go back to the LAN setup here and make sure that my setting took, and it did because when I come back, it says 192.168.1.10. So back to wireless. This router is not the world's fastest, but it does its job. Okay, so we're back here. Channel set to 6. You can set it to 1, 6, or 11. Trust me, those are the three best ones. Outside of that, you're going to have performance issues. And it's no fun having performance issues on a wireless network. So next what we're going to do here is get some of this information. Okay, so the name or SSID of the router right here. So I'm going to copy that. So highlight it, copy it by right-clicking on it, go over here, and I'm going to write this information down. Why? Because you're going to need it when you're setting up the other two routers. So SSID is main router, right? So highlight it again, copy it, and paste it. There we go, main router. Now we know the network information for the Wi-Fi on your main router, okay? And the next and last thing you're going to need is something called the passphrase or password for Wi-Fi. So when you're connecting to your router through Wi-Fi, you need the SSID, which is in this case main router, and you need the passphrase or password, which in this case is Silly Inc. 256. So let's write again. Make sure you write this stuff down because if you don't, when you're configuring the other routers, you'll be hunting around for, oh, what was that? Where was it? How do you spell it? Blah blah blah. Don't do that. Just use Notepad and note this stuff, and then save the file so that you have it for future reference, or you can print it out too. All right. So I'm highlighting the actual passphrase here. And I'm going to hit copy. Now, not all routers allow you to do that, but this one does. And I'll show you that in the future here. Okay, so we've got the main router, IP address, and we have the SSID and passphrase. So that's what we need to do on the main router. At this point, the DHCP is on and set. We can hit, I don't even need to hit apply there. I didn't change anything, but here on LAN setup, you'll see that the DHCP is set to 10 to 254, and again here it's on. So by default, these settings are the DHCP server is on your main router. So we're done with this router here. We can close this window off. We've collected this information, and this is important stuff because you need to know the primary router's IP address right here. This one, 192.168.1.1. So you know what to call the next two routers, what IP address to use on them. Because if they're not on the right IP address range, they won't work. So let's get on with that. Okay, so here's my picture of the current, or what I was proposing to do. So we're going to go to the next picture here. All right, so here's what we have. We have a router, the main router on the northwest side of the house, the secondary router in the living room, and the tertiary or third router in the garage. Okay, so we know that the IP address for our router is 192.168.1.1. Yours may be 192.168.0.1 or 2.1 or 3.1 or something else, right? So whatever your IP address is, in my case, it's 192.168.1.1. That means that my secondary router is going to be 192.168.1.2, and my third router is going to be 192.168.1.3. Okay, they will be able to talk to each other because they're on the same network. But if your router is on 0, 1, which is most often the next choice in numbers, then your secondary router would be 192.168.0.2, and your third router would be 192.168.0.3. So whatever X is on your primary router, it needs to be that on your secondary router and on your third router. Okay, so that's just, again, hopefully that's straightforward enough for you. Now I'm going to minimize this, and again, you don't need to know why, just need to know that that's the way it works, right? So let's minimize this and continue on here. Okay, so now we know that our living room router is going to have to be 192.168.1.2, and the garage is going to be 1.3, as you see here. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is connect the router physically, the secondary router physically, to the laptop. And so I'm going to show you how to do that, and then we're going to log into it and configure it. All right, I'm going to hard connect to this router using a LAN cable. All right, this is a patch cord that came with the actual router itself, and it's 2 RJ45 male connectors, just a patch cord. And I'm going to power up the router, so I'll plug the power into it, power it up, and plug this cord into the back of it. And I'll show you where. Any one of these 4 amber ports, not the blue port in this case, that's the WAN port. We only want to connect to the LAN ports. And another thing is, after this router is actually configured and connected wirelessly to the other router, these ports are available for you to plug anything you want into them to either access stuff on the network or surf the internet. So these 4 ports will actually become useful after you configure this router to connect to the other router. This port is the LAN port, the WAN port. It won't be useful. You don't use the blue port or the internet WAN port. Just the LAN ports. You can't. Okay, so 4 more devices can be plugged into that. So we're going to plug in the LAN cable to any one of those amber ports. And yes, you can do this wirelessly if you know how to get to this router wirelessly when it's powered up. But this is the easiest way to configure it. So then we take the other end of the cable, plug it into the laptop's LAN port or network port, and we're off to the races. Now, if you don't have a laptop, you can do this on a PC if it has a network card in it. Outside of that, I would say, hey, log on to it wirelessly using its wireless settings. But this is the easiest way to do it, and that's the way I'm going to show you. So we got that second router plugged in and powered up. So we're going to find its IP address. So we're going to do the same procedure again. Windows button, the gear button or settings. Then we're going to go to network and internet. And here we're scrolling down to network and sharing center. And again, change adapter settings. And you see your 3 connections, or however number of connections you have. I'm going to disable my wireless here, so just turn it all off. I want to make sure that I get the Ethernet port only connection, because that's what we're looking for. We're looking for what's connected to the Ethernet port, which is that router we just plugged in. So right click it, choose status, go to details, and under details you'll notice something. The IPv4 default gateway, that is the IP address of the router, and it says 192.168.0.1. Okay, so let's take some notes here, and we're going to call this one the living room router, as per the diagram I showed you, which is right here. There we go, living room. Okay, so it's this router, the TP-Link 8 WR841N. So let's minimize that. And now we know its IP address, and so let's write that down. Oops. And it is 192.168.0.1. Now we're going to come back and change it, but right now this is what it is. So we know that, right? So back to this. We can close this off now. We know what the IPv4 default gateway is, which is the IP address of your router. We're going to open up a router window, a browser window here, and we're going to log into that router. So it's there we go. Oops, back. There we go. So we know its IP address is 192.168.0.1. Hit enter. Now this is a TP-Link router. It has a different default username and password. Now, if you don't know the default username and password for your router, it may be written on it somewhere. It may be written in your documentation. It may be the default, which in this case for the TP-Link would be admin on the username and admin on the password. But if your manufacturer is different, like say Netgear, it would be admin and password. But again, I don't know what yours are, so I'm using the default so you guys know what they are for at least the Netgear and for the TP-Link. So I'm going to go admin here. We're logging into it, and admin again as the password, all lowercase. Remember, if yours are those defaults, change them. Okay, so I reset this router and it's saying, hey, run a quick setup. We don't want to do that, so I'm just going to hit exit. This is the default configuration you'll find when you take it out of the box. So, okay, so we exit out. We got all this information. We need to go set up a few things. Number one, we're going to start with the wireless settings. And you can see the wireless network name is TP-Link _ D6C0. Oh, it's very complicated. So let's change that to what it's going to be, which is going to be the living room router. So we're just going to call it living room. That's all we need. I guess you could go one more, router. There we go. And then we're going to save it. Every time you change a field, always save it. There we go. It took the change, and now it's called the wireless network name now is living room router. So we're going to copy that. We need all this information to configure clients and to configure the next router to log into this router, okay? Because all this stuff is happening through Wi-Fi, so we need the Wi-Fi information to connect to it. So copy it. So highlight it. See, I can't right-click here and copy, but if you highlight the information, then hit Control on your keyboard and C, that will copy it. I've got two notepads here. I'm going to close one off. There we go. There we go. So let's put that in here. Wireless network address, and we know it's going to be living room router. There we go. And then we can go on to the next line because we need some more information here. So next, what we're going to do is go to the security settings here, wireless security, and we're going to change this. The wireless security is required to log into this router through Wi-Fi, which is what we're going to do with clients and with the next router that we're going to log into it with. So I'm going to change the password here to Silly Inc. Let's call it 512. Okay, you can change the password to be whatever you want, but again, let's note down what we got: wireless password. So highlight it, Control C. This router won't let you right click and save stuff. So again, so now if I right click here and hit paste, it's there, wireless password. Or you can just type it in if you wish. And the wireless password is Silly Inc. 512. So I could just copy it, but you know, it's up to you. Copy and paste it. Probably the safest thing to do is copy and paste it. You get exactly what you put there. But Silly Inc. 512, that's my wireless password. Okay, so we've changed something on the router. So we scroll down here and we save it. Okay, and you know, hit it twice if you wish. That's okay. So we're going to go back to wireless settings. Now again, all routers have these settings somewhere in them. They may not be where they are for your router if it's a different manufacturer, but it'll have these settings somewhere. So here what we're going to do is enable WDS bridging. Okay, that is what's going to allow us to connect this router to the main router right? So we're going to be connecting from the living room to the main router. And also, it will allow us, well, it won't, actually that's what WDS bridging is going to do for us. Primarily here is going to allow this router to connect to the main router. And we're going to do it again on the third router too. All right, so here we're going to hit the survey button. So we're going to click survey. Now you can get this information. Okay, well, here we go. We got the survey, and this is an app list. It tells you what kind of wireless routers are available around you. And the one we're interested in is the main router, because that's the one we want to connect to. So we're going to click on connect there. And it auto-populates this information, which is really nice. If your router does not have a survey button, then you could just manually put in main router, right? And then find the BSSID to be bridged number and then put it in here as well. And you say, hey, Richard, how do I do that? I'll show you right now as an aside here. So go down to your search field, type in CMD, that's CMD for command prompt, and you see command prompt here. Click on that. And then to find out what your BSSID is for your router, what you do is connect to the router. So at this point, I'm just going to show you the command that you use to do this. So it's called ARP space -A. And that shows you all your MAC addresses, which is what this is BSSID to be bridged is, right? So in this case, you see that it's showing me the MAC addresses of everything on the current network, right? So in order to find the MAC address for your primary router, you got to connect to it, all right? So again, you could do that right now. And let's see, here, let's do it. So I'm going to connect back to the main router through Wi-Fi. So main router, connect. So now I'm connected to it. See, main router connected. And if I do that same command again, ARP-A, now you get the main routers too, as well as your current router. So the router that we're on is 192.168.0.1. That's its MAC address or BSSID. And here is the main router's BSSID. And if you see this number, you see that it corresponds with this one. So that's an aside, just in case you don't have a survey button. Most people do. So the survey button, we chose the main router, and it populated that information. Now we're not done here. We're going to go to your notepad, because remember, we wrote down what the passphrase for the main router is, and that's what it's looking for down here. Okay, so it's Silly Inc. 256. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to put it in here in the password phrase. Okay, so in essence, what we're doing is we're connecting this router wirelessly to the main router. Which is, you know, requires the same information as connecting, like I don't know, a phone or a tablet to your wireless router. Okay, you need this stuff. You need the SSID and you need the password. Okay, plus a little extra up here, but the survey button gives you that. So here we're going to hit save and hit OK. Okay, and again, I'm going to disconnect here from wireless so that we know we're only connected to this thing. So there we go. I'm still hardwired into this router, so there's still a cable going from the router to my computer. So, all right, we've got that all set up. Next, we're going to go to network, and actually, let's go to DHCP. Let's go to DHCP here. So somewhere in your router, there'll be a DHCP settings, and what we want to do is we need to disable the DHCP server. So however you do that on your router, do that. You need to disable it. Hit save. It says, note, the change of DHCP config will not take effect until this device reboots. Okay. And then it gives you an option to reboot it here, but we're not going to do that right now. We're just going to say, you know, save. Okay, we know we're saved. Next, we're going to go to network and LAN. Okay, so we're going to change the IP address of the router. That's where we're going, and usually that's under LAN. And here's the IP address, 192.168.0.1. we're going to change that to the corresponding number that we have on our graphic. In our case, is 192.168.1.2. Okay? So let's get out of here. And there we go. And we're going to change this number, 192.168.1.2. And then we're going to hit save, and it'll want to reboot when we do that. So 192.168.1.2 is the living room router. So we want to copy that, so highlight it, Control-C, and then hit save. Okay, modification of the LAN settings will result in the rebooting of this device. And we're going to say OK, and it will reboot. But before we do that, let's open up Notepad, go back to living room router, and change the IP address, because now we know that it's going to be 192.168.1.2. So we want to note this stuff as we do it. Okay. And of course, it's going to reboot. I'm going to close the browser window because it's going to automatically go to the right IP address, which will be 192.168.1.2. But we want to, I'm going to simulate that it didn't by closing the browser window and opening it again. So let's open up that browser window again. And remember, the router is currently rebooting, so it'll take a sec. You can see the process happening here. No internet, nothing. Right? So let's do the 192.168.1.2. And when that router comes back, there it is. We're back, right? But now it's at 192.168.1.2 instead of 0.1. Okay, so here we're going to type in the username, which is admin, and the password, default password, admin as well. Admin for TP-Link. Change these, of course. And boom, we're in. Okay, now what you want to do in your status page is look for this, WDS status. So we're connecting these two routers using WDS, and this WDS status tells you whether they're connected or not. So if you look over here under WDS status in the menu, you'll see that it gives you the different states that it can give you. But run means it's associated successfully. So this router has connected to the other router and associated itself with it using WDS successfully because it says run in the status. So it's running right now. Okay? So at this point, we're still connected, hard connected to this router, and we should be able to browse the internet hard connected to this router. So let's open up another browser tab, go to Google, bang, we're in, right? Let's click on I'm feeling curious, that'll do. And you can see that it's browsing, it's surfing, no problem. You know, you can continue on here. As you can see, we can browse the internet hardwired to this router. Okay, so now I'm going to pull the network cable off of the laptop. Network cable unplugged, right? So at this point, I'm no longer connected to the internet, and I'm no longer connected to the router because I pulled the cable. So what we're going to do is go back over here, turn on Wi-Fi, and then you see right there the living room router, right? So we're going to click on that, and then we're going to connect to it. And it's going to ask us for a key. This is why we're using Notepad. What is the key for the living room router? Oh yeah, Silly Inc. 512. So copy it, or highlight it, copy it, and let's go back here. Living room router, connect, paste it. There you go. If you want to see it, this little icon over here will show it to you, right? And then click Next. Now that should connect us back onto the router, or back into this router, the 192.168.1.2 living room router. And at that point, we should be able to see it, the main router, and the internet as well. Okay, so right now, we're connected to the living room router. That's beautiful. So if we refresh this page, or just close this out, but open another browser window, just to make sure we're nice and clear. There we go. Okay, 192.168.1.2. That's the IP address of the secondary router. It says the router only allows one administrator to log in. Please try again. I guess I should have logged out of it before I shut it off. So I'm just, another way of getting around this error is just reset the router. So I'm doing that right now. I turned it off, turning it back on. But the key is that I can get to it only connected through Wi-Fi, which right now is rebooting because I rebooted the router. But okay, so let's switch back. So if you have that error where it says, hey, only one administrator to log in at one time, that means we're logging in from multiple places. The router knows it. It says, hey, only one person at a time, right? It's a security feature, but all you need to do is reset the router, reconnect to it. In our case, it's going to be the living room router right there, connecting, already doing it. Connected and secured. Okay. And you can see that verification here in the network window. And I'm just going to hit refresh here if it works. See it? There we go. So now we can log into it if we wish, but don't really need to, but what the heck, let's do it. That way you know it's live. There we go. And WDS status is still run, which is good. It means we're on it's connected to the primary router and should be allowing you to surf. All right? Okay? So one more thing, make sure your DHCP server is off, and it is, it's disabled. So I'm going to open up another browser window and see if we're still browsing, and yes, we are. We're only connected through Wi-Fi, we're connected to the living room router, and we are certainly browsing the internet, right? Perfect. Okay, that's router number 2, living room router. Next, we're going to do the garage router, and it needs to be plugged in exactly the same way that the primary the secondary router or the living room router was plugged in. So I'll show you that next, and then we'll configure it to connect to the living room router. So next, I'm going to show you the garage router and how to set it up. Oh, sorry, before we go and hook up that third router, I wanted to show you, I mentioned that you can go to the main router from the living room router. So here you can see that we're still connected to the living room router, and I've got a browser window open up here, so let's make sure we're still browsing the internet, and we are. And if you wanted to go to the main router and see what was there, 192.168.1.1 will get us there. Boom. Now normally it would ask me for a password, so I can simulate that again by starting a fresh window. I've logged into it before, so yeah. So if I go to 192.168.1.1, there it is. It's asking me for a password. So in this case, it would be admin and password for the lowercase on the password. For the Netgear router, default username and password. Boom, we're in. And only connected through Wi-Fi in the living room. So we should be able to do that as well with the third router, and also see every router and every device across the whole network from anywhere that you're connected. So at this point, we're going to connect the third router physically and to get its IP address, and then configure it and then test it all out. So here we have the TP-Link WR940N router. This is the router I'm going to use as the garage router. I'm going to use the patch cable that it came with. It's just a LAN patch cable, 2 RJ45s on the ends. Standard patch cable, comes with the router. And I'm going to plug it into one of the 4 amber ports on the back. It'll be one of these, not the blue one, the blue internet port or WAN port we're not going to use. So I'm going to plug the LAN cable into one of those, and then the other one, the other side, of course, is going to go into my laptop in its LAN port or network port. And if you don't have one of these on your laptop or your computer, then I guess the only other option to get into this router would be to log into it wirelessly. But I don't recommend that. I'd say find your patch cord, plug it in directly, and connect it physically to your laptop or your computer, and that's the best way to go. Now, another thing I want to point out to you is that once this router is configured and connected to the network, you'll have 4 spare ports on the back, that you can plug anything you want into it. So you could plug in a printer into it, or I don't know, another computer, or whatever you wish that's network connected into one of these amber ports, and have it connected to your network and be able to surf the internet. So don't forget about the extra connectivity that you get because you've got this router. You get 4 LAN ports to plug into, which will give you access to the internet and everything on the network. Okay, so that's pretty cool too. Okay, so again, back to the LAN ports, any one of the LAN ports, the amber ports, and the other side on the laptop. So we have the third router connected and powered up and physically connected to the laptop or your computer. So same procedure as all the rest. I'm going to hit the Windows button, go to the gear button, settings, right? And then we're going to go to network and internet, and then down to network and sharing center, and once again to change adapter settings. And you see now that I'm still logged into the Wi-Fi on the living room router here on the Wi-Fi. So I'm going to turn that off. I always want to make sure that I'm only working on one device, and the one device I'm connected to. And in this case, that is the primary router here, the Ethernet. And I'm going to right-click it and choose Status, just like before. Go to Details. Then you see that the IPv4 default gateway is 192.168.0.1 again. Obviously, I've reset that router to its default settings, and that is the default IP address for a TP-Link router, usually 192.168.0.1. But check it to make sure. So we're going to write that down. We're going to go here to a garage. So that's what it's going to be. Router. We'll call it router. Garage router. And the IP address currently is 192.168.0.1. Okay, so you can take that and highlight and copy it because we're going to need it in the browser window we're going to open up next, because we have to log into this router and configure it to connect to the living room router. So let's do that. And I'm just going to paste the number in here. You could type it in if you want, 192.168.0.1. Boom, we're at the router. And as you can see, it's a TP-Link, and its default username and password are going to be admin. So let's do that, admin. Again, I can't stress enough that you should change these if they're default. Otherwise, find out what yours is from your documentation or the person who put your router together. So let's go here. And if you don't know what your username and password is for your router, there is one sure way to reset it back to a default, and that is to reset your router to what they call the factory reset. But if you do that, you could knock a lot of settings out on your router that connect you to the internet. So I don't recommend you do that, but that is an option. And if you know what you're doing, you can reset it back. But I don't recommend that. Find out what your username and password actually is for your router. If you don't know your manufacturer's default, Google it, you'll find it. Okay, so here we're back. It's saying let's do a quick setup. I'm going to hit exit on that. Once again, we're going to go to wireless and the wireless network name. Okay, well, we're going to copy that. That's the SSID, and they even tell you right there, also called SSID. So I highlighted it. I hit Control-C, and of course, we're going to note this because we note all our stuff. We've got a crazy name, TP-Link underscore link underscore 0E46. We don't want that. We're going to put in garage router. Simple, right? We know what it is. So here we're going to hit save. Okay. Here we're going to go back to wireless security. Why? Because it's got some crazy wireless security password here we don't want. So we want to change the wireless security password because you need the SSID or the network name, and you need the wireless password to log into this router. And you want to note that so that when you want to hook devices up to this router, it's really easy. So we're going to put in here Silly Inc. We'll continue with this. and 768. So that's fine with me. I'm going to copy it. So right click it, highlight it, and Control C. You can't actually right click and copy, but you can do Control C. So the network name now is garage router, and what they call it here, wireless password. So we'll put it in there, wireless password, and that is Silly Inc. 768. Okay, so we're going to save that. That's all we need to do there. Okay, we're going to go back to wireless settings because we need to turn on WDS bridging again. So again, it asks you for information, right? So what we're going to do here, again, is hit the survey button. I love the survey feature, TP-Link routers. Video description below. I'll put links for the routers I'm using here. I think at this point I wouldn't even bother with the WR741. I would just get the WR940N because it's just a superior router and it's only like $5 more. So that's the black one instead of the white one. So it's faster, it's newer, it's prettier, and it's only $5 more. So all the way around, a better deal. But if you want the 741N, WR741N is an excellent router as well. They're both good. So here you see that now he's found all the routers in my area, and main router is there, and living room router is there. So we're going to connect to the living room router, right? So connect. And of course, it's asking us for a password. And we wrote down the password for the what do you call it? The living room router right there. So we'll just highlight it, copy it, and paste it in. And that would be Control V. You can't right click and paste here. So Control V, Silly Inc. 512. Save it. Okay, WDS channel cannot be auto while WDS bridging is enabled. Do you want to change U channel to the bridge AP channel? Yes. We're going to hit OK on that. And it changes it to 6. So at this point, hit save once more just to be sure everything's saved and cool and happy. Wireless security is on. Next thing we need to do is go over here to DHCP, disable it. Again, we can't have more than one DHCP server on the network, and the main router is the only one that's allowed. The rest have to be turned off or havoc will happen. Okay, so we'll just turn it off, hit save. Okay, it says the change in DHCP config will not take effect unless the device reboots. Well, we're not going to reboot it right now. Just hit save again just to be sure. Okay, it tells you again. And next thing we're going to do again, it's just again same procedure. We're going to network, back to LAN, and we have to change the IP address to be on the right network. Okay, so in this case, the IP address for the garage, as we noted, will be 192.168.1.3, right? Again, you know, as I show here, this is how it works, okay? So if your primary is on 1.1, all the rest is going to be on 1.2 and 1.3. And if you wanted to put a fourth router off the garage router, it would be 1.4. So again, it would change if your primary router's IP address was 0, then everything would be, you know, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, so on and so forth, okay? So let's minimize this, and let's change this. And of course, when we do that, it's going to reboot, which will change everything, especially where the router is, and turn off the DHCP. So here we're going to hit save on 192.168.1.3. And of course, modification of the LAN setting will result in the rebooting of this device, okay? Okay. And it will reboot. I'm going to let it sit here and go through the setting. I'm just going to close the browser window. It would automatically change to the next to the 192.168.1.3, but I'm going to pretend that yours didn't. So let's close this up. You don't need that there. And open up a browser window here. Okay, and there we go. And you can see here that the network icon is flashing on and off. So there's no point going to that until it's solid and steady, okay? So we'll wait. Well, maybe we're okay at this point. Let's see, there's 192.168.1.3 is where we're going. And hit enter and see if we get there. And now there's no exclamation point or anything on that address down there, so I think we're good. We're back to the router at 192.168.1.3. So here we're going to type in admin again, lowercase, and then we're in. Now, why are we doing this? Because we need to check that the WDS status is good. So if you look down here at WDS status, it says run. And if you look over here, it explains that run means it's associated successfully. Perfect. So now we got 3 routers connected together. All of them should be on the internet, and all of them should be able to see everything on the network. So everything will see each other. Okay, so let's test that out. Okay, so right now we're hardwired into this router. We'll test the hardwired connection from it. Let's see if we can actually browse the internet at this point. And yes, we can. You know, I'm feeling trendy on Google. Takes us somewhere. I can see the Google page, so things are happening. Beautiful. So next thing I'm going to do here is, can we see the second router, 192.168.1.2? Yes, we can. Look at that. All right. And again, remember, we're hardwired into this wireless router right now. And let's see if we can see router number 1 from their third router. And we can, because it's asking me for the username and password. So admin, password here. And we're into the Netgear router, all from the primary that we're connected to, 192.168.1.3. So hardwired into every router, we can see everything on the network. You know, here I'm going to pull the network cable out, and you'll see that I'll become disconnected down here. Then I'm going to connect to this router, the garage router here. Connect. And it's Silly Inc. 768, which is the SSID password that we wrote down in Notepad over here. See that? All right. Oh, forgot to change this IP address. 192. The garage router is 192.168.1.3, and we got Silly Inc. here as the wireless password, right? So copy it. And you know, in your Notepad, why not, if you change the passwords for the username and password of the routers, why not put that down in here as well, right? So let me minimize this. And you saw that the router page is now saying I can't get to it because I'm not logged into anything right now. I pulled the cable, right? So I'm going to close this browser window off. Go back, and it's currently connected to the living room router. And yeah, here's a good test. We're connected to the living room router. Let's see. Can we see the can we see the new router, which is 192.168.1.3? Let's see, 192.168.1.3. And yes, you can. So let's turn that off. Go back to wireless. Let's connect to the garage, because I'm assuming you're working on your car and you want to Google how to change your spark plug. So here we're going to hit connect, and it's going to ask you for the wireless password. I'm going to paste it in there. You can see it by hitting the icon over here, and then click next. All right, connected and secured. Boom. So now we're connected to the third router in the garage. And, oh, that's not what we want. We want an incognito window here. There we go. See me again. And here we're going to go 192.168.1.3. Make sure we can get to the router that's connecting us to the network. Of course, it's got this router only allows one administrator thing going on. Reset the router and you'll be able to get in, no problem. But right now it doesn't matter. We can see it. Let's see. Can we see number 2? Yep. Can we see number 1? Yep. Admin, password, There you go. So all three routers talk to each other through Wi-Fi. They share all devices to everybody. So anything you could connect to, router in the garage, router in the living room, or router in the main router, will be able to be seen by all the other devices. And anything connected to any of the routers will be able to browse the internet, and you'll have Wi-Fi across your house. And anything you need to connect to, you would just basically choose where do you want to connect, living room, main router, or garage. And when you do that, you're going to need the information you wrote down here in Notepad, primarily the SSID and the passphrase for that SSID. And if you keep this stuff organized, print it out, put it away somewhere, and when, somebody says, oh, can you hook my phone up to your Wi-Fi? Well, you're in the living room. Yeah, I can do that. And then take out your Notepad and set them up, right? So that's it. Everything on the network is now connected. Everything is talking to each other, and everything's happy and should be from now on. Basically, like I said, easy to test is connect to each one. See if you can see all the other routers. If you can, you're good. So things to remember here. Number one is follow my steps, step by step by step, and you'll be fine. Also, if you have any issues, I think one of the primary things that will happen to you, and I'll do this, show you. Basically, the most important part of this whole thing is that this says run, okay? If you got WDS and it says something other than run, or whatever your router says, is an associated correctly state, then you have a problem with this setting, and you need to get it fixed, okay? So, so let me wrap this up next. All right, I want to expand a little bit on this WDS status window. Really, really important that you get run showing up here on WDS status. If you set this thing up the way I showed you, and it doesn't say run here, that means that you're not wirelessly connected to the other router. That means you're not going to communicate with the internet, and you're not going to communicate with the rest of the network. Plus, it's just not going to work. So if you see, anything other than WDS status run, then it's not working. The wireless setup isn't right. And you can see that over here that it says, authenticate, associate, trying to associate, but it's not associating. It should say run, like it should happen lickety-split pretty quickly anyway. So let's go to the wireless setup, see where I messed up, and that's where it's going to show up, right? So make sure when you're setting up the configuration originally that you follow the steps exactly and you get this right. So here we're going to go to, your settings for the WDS bridging. And I would recommend, if it didn't work the first time, just do another survey your network again. So I clicked on the survey. I'm in the garage router, so I want to connect to the living room router, correct? According to our little graphic. And so we're going from the garage to the living room, right? So let's minimize that. And so now we're got everything more or less correct here because the survey brings that up. Now, here's the problem. I don't have the right password in here. So let's put in Silly Inc 512 the correct password, and hit save. Okay. And at this point, we'll go to status, see what happens. And now it's saying initiating, right? WDS status. But even right now, I shouldn't be able to surf the net till that says run. So I'll say Google here. And now it's saying Google. So more than likely, this is now connected. Let's see. Yes, run. So refresh it, and you see that it says run. Now, if I break this under wireless and just turn it from, just put the wrong information in here, let's just put in this, wireless route instead of router, save. Okay, let's go to status. Once it catches up to me. Shut that off. There we go. And now it's saying in it again, right? So, we'll refresh it a few times, see what happens. So far, nothing. Open up a browser window, see if I can browse Google. And no, because it's no longer associated with the router that's connected to the internet. So this is going to keep going in it all forever, I would say, right? In it. So if you look over here, in it, WDS connection is down. So obviously it's not right. So let's go to the wireless again. Change this to back to router. Save it. Go to status. Run. Guess what that means? It means we're connected again. It says run. So, and look at that, Google shows up. So, again, this, if you're troubleshooting this issue, big thing is WDS status. It should say run. Again, everything's under. If it doesn't say run, then something's wrong down here. Fix it and make it work. That's it for my video on cascading or daisy chaining 3 routers in a row. Hopefully that helped you out in some way. And if you like this video, do me a big favor and click on the like button here in the bottom right hand corner and give me a big thumbs up. I appreciate it greatly. I will also put links to all this hardware in the video description below for you so that's easy for you to get. I would recommend getting the TP-Link WR940N router with WDS technology for this. Seems to work great. The WR781N is a little long in the tooth at this point, and it's only like $5 cheaper than the other one, so it's worth the extra $5 to get the extra speed on the WR940N instead of the 741. So my recommendations again in the video description below for you. Also, if you look on the screen up here on this corner, you should see a picture of me. That is the subscription link. If you click on that, you'll be subscribed to my channel. As part of the process of subscribing to my channel, you'll be prompted to hit a bell icon. If you click on the bell, you'll be notified every time I put up a new video, and then you can watch it at your own leisure and your own time. So once again, and like always, I want to thank you all for watching, for your time, and your very kind comments.